The crowd gasped as Maxwell Grayson collapsed in Central Park, his empire crumbling just hours before. Paramedics swarmed, their frantic efforts failing, until a small figure emerged from the shadows, her tiny hands moving with impossible precision. But no one imagined what would come next. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible stories of fate and fortune. Maxwell Grayson's phone slipped from his fingers, clattering onto the mahogany desk. The words from the call still echoed in his ears. The board has voted unanimously. Effective immediately, you are removed as CEO of Grayson Enterprises. His breath caught in his chest as he struggled to comprehend how 30 years of building an empire could vanish in a single morning. At 62, Maxwell had been the toast of Wall Street for decades. Forbes had named him America's most innovative CEO just last year. Now, in May 2023, he stood alone in his corner office, watching workers remove his name from the door. "Sir, they've requested you vacate the premises within the hour," his assistant Jennifer said softly from the doorway, unable to meet his eyes. Maxwell straightened his custom Italian suit. "I built this company from nothing, Jennifer. From nothing." His voice betrayed no emotion, though his hands trembled slightly as he collected his personal items, remarkably few for a man who'd spent more time in this office than in his own home. The betrayal cut deeper because Maxwell knew exactly who had orchestrated his downfall. Richard Vance, his CFO and trusted friend of 20 years, had been meeting privately with board members for months. Maxwell had dismissed the rumors, confident in their friendship. As security escorted him through the lobby, employees who had greeted him reverently that morning now averted their eyes. Outside, reporters swarmed like vultures. "Mr. Grayson, is it true the company lost $2 billion under your leadership? Were you aware of the financial irregularities before today? What do you say to allegations that you falsified quarterly reports?" Maxwell pushed through them wordlessly, his personal driver waiting with the car door open. As they pulled away, he watched the gleaming Grayson Tower recede in the window, 58 stories of glass and steel that had been his life's work. "Where to, sir?" his driver asked. "Central Park," Maxwell replied. He needed space to think, to breathe, to process the sudden implosion of his world. As they drove through Manhattan, his phone buzzed incessantly with messages from colleagues, friends, his ex-wife, and his estranged daughter Eliza. He silenced it and stared out the window, his chest tightening with each passing block. By the time he reached the park, the pressure in his chest had intensified. He dismissed his driver, insisting on walking alone. The May sunshine mocked his darkening mood as he followed the familiar path around the reservoir, his thoughts churning with rage and humiliation. His phone rang again. Eliza. He hesitated, then declined the call. They hadn't spoken in months, not since their argument at Christmas, when she'd accused him of caring more about his company than his family. The irony wasn't lost on him. The pressure in his chest suddenly transformed into searing pain. Maxwell stumbled, clutching at his left arm as it went numb. The world tilted sideways as he collapsed onto the path, his breath coming in short, desperate gasps. "Help," he whispered, but the word barely escaped his lips as darkness closed in around him. His last thought, before consciousness slipped away, was of Eliza, and the realization that she had been right all along. "Someone call 911. A jogger shouted, skidding to a stop beside Maxwell's crumpled form. Within seconds, a small crowd gathered around the fallen billionaire, whose ashen face was now splashed across the morning's financial news. 7-year-old Lily Chen watched from behind a nearby trash can, her small hands clutching a half-eaten sandwich she'd scavenged moments earlier. With her worn backpack and dirt-smudged face, she was invisible to the crowd of concerned New Yorkers in their expensive athleisure. Lily wasn't like other second-graders. While her classmates played with dolls and video games, she spent hours in the public library reading medical textbooks. Her fascination had begun when her grandmother died of a heart attack 2 years ago. Since then, she'd absorbed information with a photographic memory that even her teachers couldn't explain. Sirens wailed in the distance as Maxwell's breathing grew more labored. A woman knelt beside him, awkwardly attempting chest compressions. "You're doing it wrong," Lily whispered to herself, noticing the improper hand placement and rhythm. The paramedics arrived 4 minutes later, their movements swift and practiced as they surrounded Maxwell. The crowd backed away, giving them space to work. Lily edged closer, drawn by an irresistible need to observe. "BP's dropping. Pulse is irregular," one paramedic called out, attaching leads to Maxwell's chest. "We've got V-fib." They worked frantically, administering medications and shocking his heart, but Maxwell's condition deteriorated. After the third unsuccessful shock, the lead paramedic's face grew grim. "He's not responding. Continue CPR while we prepare for transport." Lily's heart raced. Something was wrong with their approach. She could see it. The medical textbook she'd memorized flashed through her mind. Elderly patients with signs of cardiac tamponade require a different protocol. She pushed through the legs of onlookers before anyone could stop her. "Wait! You're doing it wrong!" Her high-pitched voice cut through the chaos. The paramedics barely glanced at the tiny girl with tangled black hair. "Get her out of here," one ordered, continuing compressions. "No, listen," Lily persisted, ducking under restraining hands. "His jugular vein is distended and his skin is turning blue around his lips. It's cardiac tamponade. There's fluid around his heart." This caught the attention of the youngest paramedic. "What did she say?" "You need to do a pericardiocentesis," Lily continued desperately. "The pressure is stopping his heart from filling." The lead paramedic paused, looking more closely at Maxwell's neck and the bluish tinge to his extremities. "How does she know that?" he muttered, but reassessed the patient with new eyes. "James, get the ultrasound," he ordered sharply. "The kid might be onto something." Seconds later, the portable ultrasound confirmed Lily's diagnosis. Fluid was compressing Maxwell's heart, preventing it from pumping effectively, a condition that would have been fatal within minutes without intervention. "I'll be damned," the paramedic whispered, preparing for the emergency procedure. "Who are you, kid?" But Lily had already backed away. Her mission accomplished, she watched from behind a tree as they inserted a long needle into Maxwell's chest, drawing out the fluid that was killing him. Within moments, his color improved, and the monitors showed a stronger heartbeat. As they loaded Maxwell into the ambulance, a police officer approached Lily. "Hey there," he said gently. "That was pretty amazing. What's your name?" Lily clutched her backpack tighter. "Lily Chen," she replied softly. "Where are your parents, Lily?" She looked down at her worn sneakers. "I don't have any." "Remarkable," Dr. Sarah Williams murmured, reviewing Maxwell's charts at New York Presbyterian Hospital. "If that paramedic hadn't recognized the cardiac tamponade, you wouldn't be with us, Mr. Grayson." Maxwell, now stabilized in the cardiac ICU, adjusted his position against the pillows. Tubes and wires connected him to various machines that beeped steadily, monitoring his damaged heart. "I'd like to thank him," Maxwell said, his voice hoarse. 24 hours had passed since his collapse, during which he'd undergone emergency surgery to drain the fluid around his heart and place a stent in his blocked artery. Dr. Williams looked up from her tablet. "Actually, from what I hear, you should be thanking a little girl." The paramedics reported that a child, a homeless one apparently, identified your condition before they did. Maxwell's eyebrows shot up. "A child? That's absurd." "I thought so too until I spoke with James, the paramedic who performed the procedure. He said this girl couldn't have been more than 7 or 8, correctly diagnosed cardiac tamponade, and saved precious minutes. In your case, minutes meant the difference between life and death." Before Maxwell could respond, the door opened and his daughter Eliza rushed in, her face pale with worry. "Dad!" she cried, hurrying to his bedside. At 32, Eliza resembled her father, with the same piercing blue eyes and determined jaw, though her dark hair came from her mother. "I've been trying to reach you for 2 days. First the news about the company, and now this?" She took his hand, her earlier anger temporarily forgotten. "I'm fine," Maxwell said reflexively, though they both knew it was far from true. "You are not fine," Eliza insisted. "You lost your company and nearly died on the same day." Maxwell's jaw tightened. "The company situation is temporary. Once I prove Richard falsified those reports—" "Dad, stop!" Eliza's voice was firm. "You nearly died. Doesn't that change your perspective at all?" Their conversation was interrupted by Detective Michael Rivera from the NYPD, who knocked briefly before entering. "Mr. Grayson, glad to see you recovering," he said. "I need to ask you a few questions about the child who helped save your life." Maxwell glanced at Eliza in confusion. "I was unconscious. I didn't see any child." "We're trying to locate her," Rivera explained. "The paramedics said she appeared to be homeless, but demonstrated extraordinary medical knowledge. When officers approached her, she fled the scene. We're concerned about her welfare." "What does this have to do with my father?" Eliza asked. "Nothing directly," Rivera admitted, "but we checked the park's security cameras." He pulled out his phone and showed them footage of a small Asian girl with a backpack, darting between trees and trash cans. "She's been living in the park for at least 2 weeks. Child Services is trying to find her." Maxwell studied the image, something stirring in his memory. "She looks familiar," he murmured. "You know her?" Rivera asked, surprised. "No, but—" Maxwell frowned, trying to place the child's face. Dr. Williams, who had been observing silently, spoke up. "Whatever her circumstances, this girl has an extraordinary gift. The knowledge she demonstrated goes beyond anything a child her age should possess." Maxwell leaned back against his pillows, suddenly exhausted. "Find her," he said quietly. "I want to thank the child who saved my life, and find out how a girl her age knew what trained professionals didn't." As Rivera left, Eliza turned to her father with an unreadable expression. "All those years of putting business before everything else, and you're saved by a homeless child. That's quite the twist of fate, isn't it?" Maxwell didn't answer, his thoughts on the small, frightened face in the security footage. Why did she seem so familiar? And more importantly, who was she running from? 5 days after his heart attack, Maxwell was discharged from the hospital with strict orders to rest and attend cardiac rehabilitation. Instead, he sat in the back of his Bentley, scrolling through emails on his phone. "Sir, we're here," his driver announced, pulling up to Maxwell's penthouse on 5th Avenue. "Wait," Maxwell said, making a sudden decision. "Take me to the company first." "Mr. Grayson, Dr. Williams was very clear about—" "I just need to pick up some personal items," Maxwell interrupted, though both knew it was a lie. 20 minutes later, Maxwell walked through the revolving doors of Grayson Enterprises, leaning heavily on his cane. The security guard at the desk nearly dropped his coffee. "Mr. Grayson, we heard you were in the hospital." "Evidently the rumors of my demise were exaggerated," Maxwell replied dryly. "I need to see Richard Vance." The guard shifted uncomfortably. "I'll need to check if you're authorized to—" "This building has my name on it," Maxwell snapped, the strain already taxing his weakened heart. Before the argument could escalate, the elevator doors opened, and Richard Vance himself stepped out, freezing when he saw Maxwell. "Max," Richard said, recovering quickly, "you should be resting." Maxwell fixed him with an icy stare. "In my office, now." "It's not your office anymore," Richard replied quietly, "and this isn't a good time." "Make time." Reluctantly, Richard led Maxwell to a conference room. Once the door closed, Maxwell's composure cracked. 20 years of friendship, Richard. 20 years, and you stabbed me in the back. Richard's expression hardened. You were driving the company into the ground with these obsessive AI projects. The board had concerns for months. Those projects are the future. Maxwell pounded his fist on the table, then winced as pain shot through his chest. Richard's face softened slightly. Look at yourself, Max. You had a heart attack. Take this as a sign to step back. Enjoy your billions. Travel. Reconnect with Eliza. Maxwell leaned forward, his voice dangerously low. I'm not finished. When I prove you manipulated those financial reports, security will escort you out now, Richard interrupted, pressing a button on the table. Get well soon, Max. Meanwhile, across the city, Detective Rivera was reviewing camera footage from Central Park, tracking the movements of the girl they now called the Little Doctor. The footage showed her emerging from a maintenance shed each morning, careful to avoid park staff. We'll stake out the shed tonight, Rivera told his partner. Child Services is standing by. That same evening, as dusk fell over the park, Lily returned to her makeshift home, carrying a paper bag containing half a sandwich from a sympathetic deli owner. She'd been careful to avoid her usual spots since helping the man in the park. Sensing the increased police presence, the shed door creaked as she slipped inside. Her home consisted of a worn sleeping bag, a backpack containing her few possessions, and a stack of library books on medicine and science. Lily had just settled in to read by flashlight when voices outside made her freeze. NYPD! We know you're in there! Panic surged through her small body. She couldn't go back into the system, not after what happened at the last foster home. Grabbing her backpack, Lily looked desperately for an escape route. The shed's tiny window was her only option. She scrambled onto a crate, pushed the window open, and squeezed through just as the door burst open behind her. She's running, an officer shouted. Lily darted between trees, her heart pounding. She knew the park better than they did, using every shortcut and hiding spot she'd discovered in the 2 months since running away from her last foster home. Finally, after losing her pursuers, she collapsed behind a large boulder, gasping for breath. Where could she go now? The shed was compromised, and temperatures were dropping. As she contemplated her limited options, her gaze fell on a newspaper someone had discarded. The front page featured a photo of the man she'd helped, Maxwell Grayson, leaving the hospital. The headline read, "Billionaire recovers after near-fatal heart attack." Lily pulled the paper closer, reading hungrily. According to the article, Maxwell was offering a reward for information about the mysterious child prodigy who had saved his life. A plan began forming in her 7-year-old mind. This man owed her his life. Perhaps he could help her stay out of foster care. With renewed determination, Lily memorized the address listed in the article, 5th Avenue and 72nd Street. She would find Maxwell Grayson. At 6:30 a.m., Maxwell sat on his penthouse balcony overlooking Central Park, sipping black coffee despite his doctor's prohibition. Sleep had become his enemy since the heart attack, his nights plagued by dreams of collapsing in the park, alone and forgotten. His phone buzzed with a text from Eliza. "Cardiac rehab at 9. I'm picking you up at 8:30. No excuses." Maxwell smiled faintly. Their relationship had been strained since his divorce from her mother 10 years ago, but his heart attack had sparked a tentative reconciliation. Still, he resisted her attempts to make him slow down or reprioritize. The intercom buzzed, startling him. "Mr. Grayson, security here. There's a situation in the lobby you should know about." "What kind of situation?" Maxwell asked, impatient. "There's a child here, sir, says she saved your life and demands to see you." Maxwell nearly dropped his coffee cup. "Send her up immediately." "Sir, protocol requires..." "Override protocol. Send her up. Now." Minutes later, the private elevator to his penthouse opened, revealing a small Asian girl with intelligent eyes and clothes that had seen better days. A security guard hovered behind her, clearly uncomfortable. "You can go," Maxwell told the guard, who hesitated before reluctantly retreating. Maxwell studied the girl standing in his foyer. She couldn't be more than 7 or 8, yet she met his gaze with surprising composure. "You're the one who diagnosed my cardiac tamponade," he said, not a question but a statement. She nodded once. "Your paramedics were administering the wrong treatment protocol. The fluid around your heart needed immediate drainage, or you would have died within 4 minutes." Her clinical assessment, delivered in the voice of a child, sent a chill down Maxwell's spine. "What's your name?" "Lily Chen." "How old are you, Lily?" 7 years and 4 months. Maxwell gestured toward the kitchen. "Are you hungry?" A flash of vulnerability crossed her face before she controlled it. "Yes." As Maxwell prepared a simple breakfast of toast, eggs, and orange juice, surprising himself with this domestic act he usually left to his housekeeper, Lily perched on a bar stool, her eyes taking in every detail of the luxurious apartment. "Where are your parents?" Maxwell asked, placing the food before her. Lily ate with measured restraint, despite her obvious hunger. "Dead. Foster care is looking for me." "You ran away?" Her eyes darkened. "The Andersons were my 4th foster family. Mr. Anderson hit me when I corrected his math. Mrs. Anderson locked me in the closet for reading her medical books." Maxwell's jaw tightened. "How long have you been on the streets?" 63 days. "And how does a 7-year-old girl know how to diagnose cardiac tamponade?" Lily finished her toast before answering. I remember everything I read. The library has medical textbooks." "Photographic memory?" Maxwell guessed. She nodded. "And I understand what I read. The doctors at school tested me when I was 5. They wanted to put me in a special program, but my grandmother got sick, and then she died, and then they put me in foster care." Her matter-of-fact recitation of personal tragedy struck Maxwell harder than he expected. Before he could respond, the elevator chimed, and Eliza stepped out. "Dad, we need to leave for—" She stopped abruptly at the sight of Lily. "Who's this?" "This is Lily Chen," Maxwell said. "She's the one who saved my life in the park." Eliza's eyes widened. "The child prodigy, Dad, the police are looking for her." "I know. We have to call them. She needs proper care, not—" "No!" Lily's voice rang out, suddenly childlike in its fear. "Please don't send me back. I can be useful. I can read to Mr. Grayson, help with his recovery, remind him to take his medications correctly." Maxwell and Eliza exchanged looks. "Lily," Maxwell said gently, "you can't stay here. But I promise we'll find a solution better than returning you to an abusive foster home." Lily's small shoulders slumped. After a moment of silence, she looked up with resignation in her eyes. "You're going to call Detective Rivera. But before you do, I need to tell you something important." "What's that?" Maxwell asked. "Your heart attack wasn't just from stress," Lily said quietly. "When the paramedics were working on you, I saw the medication in your system. Someone's been poisoning you." Detective Rivera paced the length of Maxwell's living room, his face a mask of professional skepticism. "Let me get this straight. A 7-year-old runaway is claiming someone deliberately poisoned you, Mr. Grayson." Maxwell, seated on his leather sofa, glanced at Lily, who sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by medical printouts Eliza had provided at her request. "She correctly diagnosed a condition that stumped trained paramedics," Maxwell reminded him. "I think we should hear her out." Lily didn't look up from her papers. "Digoxin toxicity," she stated matter-of-factly. "The paramedics' report noted yellow-green halos in Mr. Grayson's vision before collapse, plus the specific arrhythmia pattern on his ECG." Dr. Williams, who had arrived shortly after Rivera, leaned forward. Digoxin is a heart medication, but Mr. Grayson isn't prescribed any. Exactly, Lily replied, finally looking up. Someone's been giving it to him without his knowledge, probably for weeks, based on the accumulated toxicity. The adults exchanged uncomfortable glances. Maxwell broke the silence. Is this possible, Doctor? Technically, yes, Dr. Williams admitted reluctantly. Digoxin builds up in the system. Small, regular doses could create a toxicity that might trigger cardiac events, especially in someone with your underlying heart condition. But we didn't test for it because why would you? Lily interjected. Who would suspect poison in a man known for workaholic habits and stress? Rivera crouched to Lily's level. And how would you recognize digoxin poisoning, young lady? Page 842 of Harrison's Principles of Internal Medicine, 20th edition, she replied without hesitation. The visual disturbances are distinctive. Yellow-green halos around lights are pathognomonic for digoxin toxicity. Dr. Williams appeared stunned. That's correct. Rivera straightened, his skepticism wavering. We'll run the appropriate tests. In the meantime, he turned to Maxwell. Who would have both motive and opportunity? Maxwell's expression darkened. The list of people with motive expanded considerably when I lost control of my company, but opportunity, that's more limited. Your food, your medication, your daily routines, Rivera prompted. My assistant Jennifer handles my prescriptions. My housekeeper Maria prepares most of my meals, and Richard. Maxwell trailed off, the betrayal still fresh. Richard and I had lunch together at least twice weekly for years. Eliza, who had been listening silently, spoke up. What about your coffee? You drink that ridiculous expensive Colombian brand. Maxwell nodded. Café Azul. They deliver weekly. I'm their only customer in New York who orders that particular blend. I'll need samples of everything, Rivera said, making notes in his phone. And we'll need to place you under protection until we determine if this is a legitimate threat. That won't be necessary, Maxwell insisted. I have private security. Rivera looked pointedly at Lily. And what about her? She's a missing child, Mr. Grayson. I'm obligated to contact child services. Lily's body tensed visibly, though her expression remained controlled. Give us 48 hours, Maxwell said suddenly. If her poisoning theory proves correct, she's just saved my life twice. I'd like to ensure she's properly placed in a suitable environment. That's not how it works, Rivera began. I can make it work that way, Maxwell interrupted, steel entering his voice. One phone call to the commissioner, who happens to sit on my charitable foundation's board. The detective's jaw tightened. 48 hours. Not a minute more. After Rivera and Dr. Williams departed, the latter with blood samples for toxicology testing, Eliza cornered her father in the kitchen. What are you thinking? She hissed. You can't keep a runaway child here. And making threats to a detective? Maxwell glanced toward the living room, where Lily was organizing the medical printouts into meticulous piles. She saved my life, Eliza. Twice, if she's right about the poison. I'm not sending her back to abusive foster parents. So what's your plan? Adopt her? Eliza asked sarcastically. Maxwell paused, the idea taking unexpected root. Why not? Eliza stared at him. Because you're a 62-year-old workaholic who just had a heart attack and lost his company. You can barely take care of yourself. I built an empire from nothing, Maxwell replied calmly. I think I can handle raising one child. Before Eliza could respond, Lily appeared in the doorway, her expression grave. You shouldn't argue, she said quietly. It increases cardiac stress, and Mr. Grayson needs to take his medication now. Maxwell checked his watch, surprised to find she was correct about the timing. See, he said to Eliza with a hint of triumph. We're already good for each other. Later that night, after Eliza had reluctantly departed and Lily had been settled in the guest bedroom, Maxwell sat alone in his study. On his desk sat the preliminary toxicology report Dr. Williams had rushed through as a personal favor. Elevated serum digoxin levels detected. Source unknown. Patient not prescribed digoxin. Lily had been right. Someone had been poisoning him. Maxwell poured himself a finger of scotch, another violation of doctor's orders, and contemplated the short list of people who might want him dead. The most obvious candidate was Richard Vance, who had the most to gain from both his removal as CEO and his death. But as Maxwell sipped his scotch, an unsettling thought occurred to him. What if Lily was wrong about the poisoning being gradual? What if the final, near-lethal dose had been administered that very morning, the day he lost his company? That would change everything. June 5th, 2023, marked two significant changes in Maxwell Grayson's life. He formally filed a petition for emergency guardianship of Lily Chen, and he received confirmation that he had indeed been systematically poisoned with digoxin. "The concentration was highest in your daily coffee," Detective Rivera explained, seated across from Maxwell in the penthouse study. Lab tests confirmed traces in the grounds themselves. Maxwell's hands tightened around his armrests. "Café Azul, my private blend." "Yes." According to the company, only 3 people knew which apartment received that specific blend: the roaster, the delivery person, and Richard Vance, Maxwell finished grimly. "He gave them the original order as a birthday gift 5 years ago." Rivera nodded. "We're building a case, but we need to be careful. Vance has resources, and poisoning can be difficult to prove conclusively." "What about my guardianship petition for Lily?" Maxwell asked, changing the subject. The past 10 days had created an unexpected bond between him and the child prodigy. She monitored his medication schedule with military precision, while he provided the stability and safety she desperately needed. "Child Services is conducting their assessment," Rivera replied. "Your wealth works in your favor, but your age, health concerns, and lack of parenting experience are red flags. The hearing is scheduled for next week." After Rivera departed, Maxwell found Lily in the library, surrounded by books on corporate law and finance. "What are you researching?" he asked, easing himself into an armchair beside her. Lily looked up, her intelligent eyes serious. "I'm learning about your company. The financial reports Richard falsified to remove you. They don't make sense." Maxwell blinked in surprise. "You've been investigating Grayson Enterprises?" She nodded solemnly. "Your artificial intelligence division wasn't losing money, as the reports claimed. The accounting was manipulated to hide the true value of the patents." "How could you possibly know that?" "I accessed the quarterly filings online and compared them with press releases about patent applications." She pushed a notepad toward him, filled with calculations in her neat handwriting. Maxwell studied her notes, astonishment growing with each page. "Lily, this is remarkable. You've identified exactly what I suspected, but couldn't prove." "Richard wanted the AI technology for himself," Lily stated. "That's why he needed control of the company, and why he needed you gone permanently." The implications hung heavily between them. A 7-year-old had pieced together corporate espionage that trained auditors had missed. Their conversation was interrupted by Eliza's arrival. Over the past week, her initial resistance to Lily had softened as she witnessed the girl's extraordinary mind and genuine concern for her father's well-being. "Dad, we need to talk about the guardianship hearing," Eliza said, settling on the sofa. "Your lawyer called. The judge assigned to the case is Margaret Winters." Maxwell grimaced. "Winters. She and Catherine were college roommates." "Who's Catherine?" Lily asked. "My ex-wife," Maxwell explained. "Eliza's mother. We didn't part on the best terms." "Mom might testify against you," Eliza added reluctantly. "She thinks this guardianship idea is another of your impulsive ventures. Her words, not mine." Maxwell's jaw tightened. If I don't get guardianship, Lily goes back into the system. Not necessarily, Eliza replied, glancing at Lily with unexpected warmth. I've been thinking. Maybe I could apply instead. Both Maxwell and Lily looked at her in surprise. You? Maxwell asked. You've always said you weren't ready for parenthood. Eliza flushed slightly. That was before I met a 7-year-old who saved my father's life and outsmarted a corporate criminal. Besides, the court might look more favorably on a 32-year-old elementary school counselor than a recently hospitalized businessman in his 60s. Lily's eyes darted between them, her expression unreadable. You would do that for me? If necessary, Eliza confirmed, though I think we should try for Dad's petition first. Later that evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Maxwell found Eliza on the balcony, gazing at the city lights. Thank you, he said simply. Eliza turned to him. For what? For offering to take Lily if my petition fails. I know it's not a decision you made lightly. She's special, Dad. Not just her intelligence, though that's off the charts, but her heart. She cares about you. Eliza paused. And she's making you care about something besides work for the first time in decades. Maxwell nodded, acknowledging the truth in her words. She's changed me, he admitted. Made me reconsider my priorities. Including getting your company back? Eliza asked, studying him carefully. Richard tried to kill me, Eliza, and according to Lily's analysis, he's stripping the AI division for his personal benefit. This isn't just about my pride anymore. Eliza placed a hand on his arm. Just promise me you won't risk your health or Lily's welfare in your quest for vengeance. Before Maxwell could respond, his phone rang. The caller ID showed Dr. Williams. Maxwell, she said when he answered, her voice tight with concern. The lab found something else in your toxicology results, something concerning. How quickly can you come to the hospital? What is it? Maxwell demanded. Not over the phone, she insisted. And bring Lily. We need to run some tests on her too. Cold dread settled in Maxwell's stomach as he ended the call. Whatever, Doctor. Williams had discovered it involved not just him, but Lily as well, and that possibility frightened him more than anything Richard Vance could ever do. The hospital corridor seemed endless as Maxwell and Eliza followed Dr. Williams toward the laboratory. Lily's small hand clutched firmly in Maxwell's. I don't understand, Maxwell said for the third time. What could possibly connect my poisoning to Lily? Dr. Williams stopped outside a conference room. It's better if I show you. She nodded toward Lily. She'll need to wait outside for a moment. Eliza volunteered to stay with Lily while Maxwell followed Dr. Williams into the room. Inside, a large screen displayed what appeared to be DNA sequencing data. We ran additional tests on your blood samples, Dr. Williams explained, looking for any compounds that might have interacted with the digoxin. What we found instead was this genetic marker. She pointed to a highlighted section of the display. What am I looking at? Maxwell asked, impatient. A rare genetic variation that affects how your body processes certain medications. It's exceedingly uncommon, present in less than 0.01% of the population. What makes this significant is that this variation is hereditary. Maxwell frowned. I don't understand the relevance. Dr. Williams took a deep breath. When Lily was helping the paramedics, she had blood on her hands. Your blood. Some mixed with a small cut on her finger. Hospital protocol required testing her for blood-borne pathogens. And she has the exact same genetic marker, Maxwell. The odds of this occurring randomly are astronomically small. The implication hit him like a physical blow. You're suggesting Lily and I are related. I'm saying it's a strong possibility that you're her biological grandfather. Maxwell sank into a chair, his mind racing. That's impossible. I only have one child, Eliza, and she doesn't have children. Is there any chance you fathered another child? Perhaps one you weren't aware of. Maxwell started to shake his head, then froze as a 30-year-old memory surfaced. There was someone. Before Catherine. A research assistant at my first company. Ming was her name. We were together briefly, but she left suddenly, returned to China, I was told. When was this? 1993. I was building my first company. Ming was brilliant, helped develop our initial patents. Dr. Williams made a quick calculation. If she had your child, that person would be around 30 now, the right age to be Lily's parent. Maxwell's heart pounded. Lily told me her parents died, and her surname is Chen, not Grayson. Perhaps Ming married after having your child, Dr. Williams suggested. Or perhaps there's another explanation. The only way to know for certain is with a formal DNA test. Maxwell stared at the genetic data on the screen, his world tilting on its axis for the second time in a month. Does Lily know about this? No. I wanted to speak with you first. Don't tell her, Maxwell said decisively. Not until we're certain. She's already experienced too much upheaval. When they returned to the hallway, Lily looked up from the medical journal Eliza had found to occupy her. Is everything okay? She asked, her perceptive eyes noting Maxwell's pallor. Just some routine tests, he assured her, forcing a smile. Nothing to worry about. Back at the penthouse that evening, Maxwell sat alone in his study, nursing a glass of water while contemplating the day's revelation. If Lily truly was his granddaughter, it would explain the immediate connection he'd felt, a connection he'd initially attributed to gratitude for her saving his life. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called. Lily entered, already dressed in pajamas, her hair damp from her evening shower. "You missed your 8 p.m. medication," she informed him, placing a pill dispenser on his desk with the same seriousness an executive might deliver a crucial report. "Thank you, Lily," Maxwell replied, taking the medication with a sip of water. "You're very good at taking care of me." She nodded matter-of-factly. "Someone has to. You're not very good at it yourself." The unexpected criticism, delivered without malice, startled a laugh from him. "No, I suppose I'm not." Lily studied him, head tilted slightly. "You're troubled. Is it about what Dr. Williams told you?" Maxwell hesitated. "What makes you think she told me something troubling?" "Your pulse was elevated when you left the conference room. You've been distracted since we returned home, and you forgot your medication for the first time in 10 days. She recited these observations clinically, but her eyes revealed concern. "You notice everything, don't you?" Maxwell said softly. "Not everything, just important things." Lily paused, then added, "Is it about us being related?" Maxwell nearly choked on his water. "What? How did you—" "I heard Dr. Williams talking to the lab technician," Lily explained, "about genetic markers and relationship testing, and I saw my blood test results on her tablet. The marker they were discussing is distinctive." "Lily," Maxwell began, uncertain how to proceed. "It's okay," she said with a small shrug. "I already suspected we might be related." "You did? How?" "Our hands are the same," Lily replied, extending her small palm toward his larger one. "The shape of the thumb, the curve of the pinky finger, genetically heritable traits." Maxwell stared at their hands, noticing for the first time the similarities she described. "Also," Lily continued pragmatically, "it would explain why you're so interested in helping me. Humans have an unconscious preference for genetically related individuals, kin selection theory." A laugh escaped Maxwell, despite the gravity of the situation. "Is that why you think I want to help you? Because of evolutionary biology?" Lily considered this. "No. I think you want to help me because you're a good person who's been too busy to realize it until now." Her simple assessment stripped away decades of corporate armor. Before Maxwell could respond, Lily yawned, a reminder that for all her intellectual prowess, she was still a child. "Time for bed," Maxwell said gently. "We can talk more about this tomorrow." Lily nodded and turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Mr. Grayson." "Yes, if the test shows we're related. Would that make it easier for you to become my guardian?" "Yes," Maxwell replied honestly. "It would." Lily nodded, processing this information. "Then I hope we are related. Good night, Mr. Grayson." "Good night, Lily," he replied softly as she closed the door. Alone again, Maxwell returned to his contemplation, but with a shifting perspective. For 30 years, he'd defined himself by his company, by what he built, not whom he loved. Now, faced with the possibility that Lily was his flesh and blood, Maxwell realized how hollow his empire had become without family to share it. The irony wasn't lost on him. Richard had taken his company, but in doing so had inadvertently led Maxwell to something far more valuable, a second chance at family. The question now was whether Maxwell would live long enough to embrace that chance. Because if Richard had tried to kill him once, he would surely try again. "The DNA results are conclusive," Dr. Williams announced 3 days later, sliding the report across her desk. "Lily is indeed your granddaughter." Maxwell and Eliza exchanged stunned glances, despite having prepared for this possibility. "I have a sister," Eliza murmured, processing the revelation that her father had another child she'd never known about. "Or half-sister," Dr. Williams clarified. "Without testing Lily's parent, we can't determine the exact relationship structure." "Her mother's name was Lin Chen," Lily volunteered from her chair beside Maxwell. Having insisted on being present for the results, she absorbed the confirmation with characteristic composure. "She died when I was 5. My grandmother raised me until she died too." Maxwell leaned forward. "Lily, do you have any pictures of your mother, or information about your father?" Lily shook her head. "Grandmother never talked about my father. She said he wasn't important, and our apartment burned down last year. All the pictures were lost." "Lin Chen," Maxwell repeated thoughtfully. "Not Ming." "Ming could have been her mother," Eliza suggested. "Your, whatever she was to you." "Colleague," Maxwell supplied, uncomfortable discussing his past relationship in front of his newly discovered granddaughter. "We'll need to find records, birth certificates." "Does this change the guardianship hearing?" Eliza asked. "Significantly," Dr. Williams confirmed. "Biological relationship supersedes many other considerations in family court." As they left the hospital, Detective Rivera was waiting beside his unmarked car. "We need to talk," he said grimly. "New developments in the poisoning case." Minutes later, they were in a private hospital conference room, Rivera's expression grave as he laid out crime scene photos. Victor Martinez, delivery driver for Café Azul, was found dead in his apartment this morning. Apparent suicide. "Suicide?" Maxwell repeated skeptically. "Note claimed responsibility for tampering with your coffee. Said he couldn't live with the guilt." Rivera's tone made clear his suspicions, convenient for whoever's really behind this. "Richard Vance," Maxwell stated flatly. "We can't prove that yet, but Martinez's suicide eliminated our best potential witness." Rivera gathered the photos. "Mr. Grayson, I strongly recommend you accept police protection." Maxwell shook his head. "My security team is handling it." "Your security team can't arrest Vance when he makes another attempt," Rivera argued. "If," Maxwell corrected, "and I'm not living under police surveillance, especially now." He glanced meaningfully toward Lily, who was observing the exchange with keen interest. Rivera sighed. "At least stay away from Grayson Enterprises and anywhere Vance might anticipate finding you." "Gladly," Maxwell agreed, though the set of his jaw suggested otherwise. Back at the penthouse, Maxwell's lawyer was waiting with news of his own. "The guardianship hearing has been expedited based on the DNA findings," Howard Benson explained, his Brooks Brothers suit as impeccable as his reputation in family court. Judge Winters still has concerns about your health and age, but the biological relationship carries significant weight. When? Maxwell asked. Monday, 3 days from now. That evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Maxwell and Eliza sat in the living room, the day's revelations hanging between them. I can't believe you had another child, Eliza said finally, breaking the silence. All these years, and you never knew? Maxwell stared into his water glass, wishing it contained something stronger. If Ming was pregnant when she left, she chose not to tell me. Would it have mattered? The question held decades of reproach. You were barely present for me and Mom. Maxwell winced at the truth in her words. I was building something important. More important than family, Eliza challenged. The question hung unanswered as Maxwell's phone rang. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar number. Grayson, he answered cautiously. Hello, Max. Richard Vance's voice slithered through the speaker. Congratulations on your miraculous recovery. Maxwell's grip tightened on the phone. What do you want, Richard? Just checking on an old friend. I heard you've been playing detective, looking into poor Martinez's unfortunate demise. The casual reference to the delivery driver's murder confirmed Maxwell's suspicions. You won't get away with this. Richard chuckled. I already have, Max. The board's formally approved the sale of your precious AI division next week. Your life's work will be dismantled and sold to the highest bidders. Why, Richard? Maxwell demanded. 30 years of friendship. Was it all a lie? Not at the beginning, Richard admitted. But watching you receive accolades for innovations you barely understood while I kept the company solvent, that grew tiresome. So this is about jealousy? Pathetic? No, Max, it's about recognition and compensation. Richard's voice hardened. You were always too focused on the future to see what was happening right in front of you, just like you never noticed Ming's feelings for you, or that she was carrying your child when she left. Maxwell froze. You knew. Of course I knew. Ming confided in me before she returned to China. She made me promise not to tell you, said you were too obsessed with your company to be bothered with a family. Seems she was right. You had no right. To what? Keep her confidence? Meanwhile, you found your long-lost granddaughter. How touching. The great Maxwell Grayson, brought low by a heart attack, now playing doting grandfather. Richard's voice dripped with contempt. Enjoy your retirement, Max, and keep the little prodigy close. You never know when accidents might happen. The line went dead, leaving Maxwell shaking with rage and fear. The threat against Lily was unmistakable. What is it? Eliza asked, alarmed by his expression. Richard, Maxwell replied, already moving toward Lily's room to check on her. He's known about Ming's pregnancy all these years, and now he's threatening Lily. We need to call Rivera, Eliza insisted, following him. Maxwell pushed open Lily's door, relief flooding him at the sight of her sleeping peacefully. As he watched his granddaughter's chest rise and fall, a cold determination settled over him. No, he decided. We're not waiting for the police. It's time I took back what's mine and ensure Lily's safety in the process. What are you planning? Eliza asked, recognizing the dangerous glint in her father's eyes. Something Richard won't expect, Maxwell replied. I'm going to let him win. The executives of Grayson Enterprises shifted uncomfortably in their seats as Maxwell Grayson entered the boardroom on Monday morning. His unexpected appearance, mere minutes before the scheduled vote to approve the AI division sale, sent a ripple of whispers around the table. Maxwell, Richard Vance greeted him with barely concealed surprise. This is a closed board meeting. I'm well aware, Maxwell replied, taking an empty seat at the far end of the table. As founder and primary shareholder, I still have observation rights. You're no longer CEO, Richard reminded him, a warning in his tone. I'm not here as CEO, Maxwell assured him with a placid smile, merely as an interested party. Richard's eyes narrowed with suspicion, but he proceeded with the meeting, presenting the final terms of the sale of Grayson AI to a consortium led by Tech Fusion Global. The sale price of $2.8 billion represents a significant premium over market valuation, Richard explained smoothly. The board's due diligence confirms this is the best possible outcome for shareholders. Throughout the presentation, Maxwell remained silent, making occasional notes but offering no objections. When the vote was called, he abstained, a symbolic gesture that changed nothing as the board approved the sale 7-1. "Congratulations," Maxwell said afterward, approaching Richard with an extended hand. "You've finally gotten what you wanted." Richard hesitated before accepting the handshake, searching Maxwell's face for signs of deception. "You're taking this remarkably well." "Life-threatening experiences have a way of clarifying priorities," Maxwell replied. "The company isn't worth dying for." "So you're conceding?" Maxwell shrugged. "The board has spoken. The sale is approved. What would be the point of fighting?" Richard's expression shifted from suspicion to smug satisfaction. "I'm glad you've finally seen reason, Max. Perhaps now you can enjoy your retirement and your new role as guardian to that remarkable little girl." "About that," Maxwell said casually, "the hearing was this morning. Judge Winters granted me full legal guardianship of Lily. DNA confirmation of our relationship expedited the process." Something dangerous flashed across Richard's face before he controlled it. "How fortunate for both of you." "Indeed. In fact, we're celebrating tonight. A small gathering at Le Bernardin, just family and close friends. You should join us, Richard. 8 o'clock. Maxwell smiled thinly. "For old time's sake." After leaving Grayson Enterprises for what he expected would be the last time, Maxwell met Detective Rivera at a coffee shop 6 blocks away. "He took the bait," Maxwell reported, sliding into the booth. "The board approved the sale, and Richard believes I've surrendered." Rivera frowned. "This is still incredibly risky." "If Vance suspects a trap—" "He won't," Maxwell interrupted. "His ego won't allow it. He believes he's won completely." "And the dinner invitation?" "He'll come," Maxwell said confidently, "to gloat, if nothing else. And when he does—" "We'll be ready," Rivera finished, pushing a small black device across the table. "Wear this. It's more discreet than a wire, and our team will be positioned throughout the restaurant." Meanwhile, at Maxwell's penthouse, Eliza was helping Lily prepare for her guardianship celebration. "How does this one look?" Eliza asked, holding up a navy blue dress she'd purchased that morning. Lily examined it critically. "It seems impractical for a 7-year-old. Eliza laughed. "It's for a special occasion. You don't have to worry about climbing trees or running through the park in it." "I never did those things anyway," Lily pointed out pragmatically. "I prefer reading." As Lily tried on the dress, Eliza marveled at how quickly this extraordinary child had become part of their family. The DNA confirmation had merely formalized what she'd already begun to feel, that Lily belonged with them. "Are you nervous about tonight?" Eliza asked as she helped Lily with the buttons. "No," Lily replied. "Though I don't understand why Mr. Grayson invited the man who tried to kill him." Eliza froze. "What do you mean?" "Mr. Vance, he's coming to dinner, but he poisoned Mr. Grayson and threatened to hurt me." Lily stated this as matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. "How do you know about that?" Eliza asked, alarmed that Lily had overheard Richard's threats. "I hear everything," Lily explained simply. "People think children don't listen or understand, but I do." Eliza knelt to meet Lily's eyes. "Detective Rivera and the police will be there to protect us. Your grandfather—" She paused, testing the term for the first time. "Your grandfather has a plan to make sure Richard can never hurt any of us again." Lily nodded solemnly. "Good. I calculate a 73% probability of success based on current variables." "Only 73%?" Eliza asked, trying to keep her tone light despite her concern. "Human behavior is difficult to predict with complete accuracy," Lily explained. "But I've prepared contingencies to improve our odds." Before Eliza could ask what contingencies a 7-year-old could possibly have prepared, her phone rang. It was her father. "It's done," Maxwell said without preamble. "The board approved the sale. Richard took the bait and accepted our dinner invitation. Rivera and his team are set." "And the guardianship?" Eliza asked, glancing at Lily, who was adjusting her new dress in the mirror. "Official as of 11:22 this morning," Maxwell replied, his voice softening. "Lily is legally my ward, and more importantly, our family." Eliza felt a surge of emotion she hadn't anticipated. Despite her initial reservations about her father's impulsive decision to seek guardianship of Lily, she now couldn't imagine their family without the remarkable child. "We'll be ready by 7, she promised. "Just be careful, Dad. Richard is dangerous." "I know," Maxwell assured her. "But tonight, his reign ends." "I've spent my life building things, Eliza. It's time I protect what truly matters." As they ended the call, Eliza noticed Lily watching her intently. "Is everything okay?" Lily asked. Eliza smiled, marveling at how perceptive this child was. "Yes, your grandfather has everything under control." "He's not used to being called that yet," Lily observed. "Grandfather, I mean." "Are you okay with calling him that?" Eliza asked gently. Lily considered the question with characteristic seriousness. "I think so. It's scientifically accurate, and—" She hesitated, an unusual display of uncertainty. "And I like being part of a family again." Eliza's heart melted at the simple admission. She pulled Lily into a gentle hug, the first physical affection Lily had accepted without stiffening. "We like having you as part of our family, too," Eliza whispered. Neither of them could know that in just a few hours, their newly formed family would face its greatest test, one that would determine not just their future, but whether they would have one at all. Le Bernardin's private dining room glittered with understated elegance as Maxwell adjusted his tie. The restaurant had been carefully selected, public enough to prevent violence, exclusive enough to ensure privacy for what would follow. Lily sat beside him in her new dress, her posture perfect as she studied the menu with the same intensity she applied to medical textbooks. "I don't understand why adults pay $75 for fish," she whispered to Maxwell. He smiled despite his tension. "It's about the experience, not just sustenance." Eliza arrived next, followed shortly by Detective Rivera and his partner, both dressed as wealthy diners rather than police officers. Rivera caught Maxwell's eye and nodded slightly, confirmation that his team was positioned throughout the restaurant. At precisely 8:17, Richard Vance entered. His custom suit and confident stride projected success, but Maxwell noted the watchfulness in his former friend's eyes. "Maxwell," Richard greeted, his gaze shifting to Lily. "And this must be the famous prodigy I've heard so much about." Lily regarded him with unnerving directness. "You're exactly as I calculated you would be." Richard's smile faltered. What an unusual child. Dinner proceeded with practiced civility. Richard spoke of the AI division sale as if discussing a routine business transaction rather than the dismantling of Maxwell's legacy. Maxwell responded with apparent resignation, playing his role perfectly. As dessert was served, Richard raised his glass. "To new beginnings, Max. You built something extraordinary, and now it's time for the next chapter." Maxwell lifted his water glass. "Indeed. Though I admit curiosity about one thing, Richard." "What's that? When did you first decide to kill me? Was it before or after you arranged the board coup?" The dining room fell silent. Richard's expression hardened, but he recovered quickly. I think your health scare has affected your mind, old friend. My mind is perfectly clear, Maxwell replied, as are the toxicology reports showing digoxin in my coffee. Coffee only you knew I ordered. Circumstantial at best, Richard scoffed. And hardly dinner conversation in front of a child. I already know you poisoned him, Lily interjected matter-of-factly. The evidence is conclusive. Richard's facade cracked. What an imagination. Perhaps you should focus on children's stories rather than adult matters. Perhaps you should focus on your own survival rather than threatening mine, Lily replied calmly. Richard's eyes narrowed. Is that what this is? A clumsy attempt to record some kind of confession? He glanced around the room, suddenly suspicious. How disappointing, Max. I expected better strategy from you. Maxwell leaned forward. My strategy is just fine. The board may have approved the AI division sale today, but they didn't know what I know. And what's that? Richard asked dismissively. That Tech Fusion Global doesn't exist. Richard froze. What? The consortium you arranged, a shell corporation tracing back to your personal accounts. You weren't selling my division, you were stealing it. Maxwell slid a folder across the table. The SEC received these documents an hour ago. Fraud, embezzlement, attempted murder. Quite a list, Richard. The color drained from Richard's face as he scanned the papers. This proves nothing. The forensic accounting says otherwise, Maxwell replied, as does Martinez's real suicide note, the one he left with his sister before you staged his death. Richard's hand slipped beneath the table. Maxwell tensed, but Lily spoke first. The weapon in your pocket won't help you, she said quietly. The statistical probability of your escape is 0. Richard stared at the child in disbelief, then at Maxwell. You're bluffing. Maxwell smiled coldly. Am I? Rivera stood, badge now visible. Richard Vance, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and the attempted murder of Maxwell Grayson. As officers converged, Richard lunged for Lily. Maxwell moved instinctively to shield his granddaughter, but Lily had already slid from her chair, causing Richard to stumble forward into the waiting arms of Rivera's partner. As Richard was handcuffed and led away, his venomous gaze fixed on Maxwell. This isn't over. Maxwell held Lily close. Yes, Richard, it is. Later, as they rode home in Maxwell's car, Lily rested her head against his shoulder, a rare display of physical affection that made his heart swell. You were very brave tonight, he told her. No, Lily replied thoughtfully. I was just calculating probabilities. You were the brave one. You faced the man who tried to kill you. For good reason, Maxwell said, looking at his newfound granddaughter. Some things are worth fighting for. July 2023 brought sweltering heat to New York City and seismic changes to the Grayson family. Richard Vance awaited trial from a cell at Rikers Island, denied bail due to the severity of the charges and flight risk. Grayson Enterprises remained in limbo as the board scrambled to contain the scandal, appointing an interim CEO while Maxwell focused on his health and his newly expanded family. The penthouse had transformed in subtle ways that reflected Lily's integration into their lives. The formerly austere guest bedroom now housed a telescope, stacks of advanced textbooks, and a small collection of preserved insects, Lily's newest scientific interest. The refrigerator displayed her perfect math tests, and the living room bookshelf had been reorganized to accommodate her growing collection of medical journals. She needs friends her own age, Eliza insisted one afternoon as she and Maxwell watched Lily dissect a flower in the kitchen, meticulously cataloguing each part. All she does is read and conduct experiments. She's happy, Maxwell countered, and her mind needs stimulation. Her mind is extraordinary, Dad, but she's still 7. She needs normal childhood experiences too. Their debate was interrupted by Maxwell's phone. The caller ID showed Howard Benson, his attorney. "The board wants to meet," Howard informed him without preamble. "Tomorrow morning. They're offering to reinstate you as CEO." Maxwell's eyebrows shot up. "On what terms?" "Full reinstatement, public apology, and retention of the AI division." "They're running scared, Max. The SEC investigation has spooked the shareholders, and the stock has dropped 18% since Richard's arrest." "What about the interim CEO? Jefferson?" "He's out, too closely aligned with Richard's faction." Maxwell glanced at Lily, still absorbed in her botanical dissection. "I'll need to think about it." "Think fast," Howard advised. "This offer won't last forever." After ending the call, Maxwell shared the news with Eliza. "You're considering turning it down?" she asked, surprised. "After everything you went through to expose Richard?" "My priorities have changed," Maxwell admitted. "The company was everything to me for 30 years. Now," he looked toward Lily, "now I have more important considerations." Eliza studied her father, noting the subtle changes of the past 2 months, the softening around his eyes, the increased patience, the genuine smiles that had once been rare. "You don't have to choose," she suggested. "You could return with boundaries, reasonable hours, delegation of responsibilities." Maxwell laughed softly. "When have I ever been reasonable about work?" "People can change," Eliza said. "Look at us, at how far we've come since Lily entered our lives." Their conversation was interrupted by Lily herself, approaching with a notebook filled with detailed botanical drawings. "The vascular structure of flowers is inefficient," she announced. "I've designed improvements." Maxwell smiled. "Have you now?" "Yes. Also, you should take the CEO position." Both adults stared at her in surprise. "How did you—" Maxwell began. "Your conversation wasn't private," Lily explained matter-of-factly. "And the acoustic properties of this room create an echo effect." "Why do you think I should return?" Maxwell asked, curious about her reasoning. "3 reasons," Lily replied promptly. "First, the company needs ethical leadership to recover from Mr. Vance's actions. Second, you need intellectual stimulation, or you become restless and irritable. Third, we could use the financial resources to expand my educational opportunities." Maxwell exchanged an amused glance with Eliza. "All practical considerations." "There's also a 4th reason," Lily added, her voice softer. "The company is part of who you are. It would be irrational to abandon it now." The simple observation, delivered with a child's directness, struck Maxwell deeply. For weeks, he'd been seeing the company as his past, something to move beyond for Lily's sake. But she, with her uncanny perception, had recognized what he hadn't, that Grayson Enterprises remained integral to his identity. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Maxwell sat on the balcony with Eliza, the city lights creating a tapestry below them. "She's right, you know," Eliza said. "The company is part of you." "But so is she now," Maxwell replied. "So are you, more than ever before." Eliza smiled. "Then find balance." "It's what you've been teaching me all summer, what Lily's been teaching both of us." Maxwell nodded, decision crystallizing. "I'll go back, but on my terms, limited hours, no international travel without bringing you both, and I want the board to fund a special education program for Lily and children like her." "Children like her?" Eliza repeated. "I'm not sure there are many." "Maybe not," Maxwell agreed, "but she shouldn't have to hide her brilliance or feel isolated because of it. We can create something better." As he spoke, Maxwell felt a sense of purpose, stronger than anything he'd experienced in building his corporate empire. The future stretching before him now included not just innovation and commerce, but family and legacy in its truest sense. Tomorrow, he would reclaim his company, but tonight, he would simply be grateful for the second chance he'd never expected. and the extraordinary child who had made it possible. The cameras flashed relentlessly as Maxwell stood at the podium, his return as CEO of Grayson Enterprises dominating financial news. August 2023 marked not just his corporate resurrection, but the unveiling of his most personal initiative yet. Today we announce the Grayson Institute for Exceptional Young Minds, Maxwell stated, his voice strong despite the summer heat. A place where children with extraordinary intellectual gifts can learn without limitations while still developing the social and emotional skills necessary for a balanced life. The crowd of reporters and shareholders murmured with interest as Maxwell continued. The institute will be housed in our West Village property and will welcome its first students this January. Admission will be based solely on cognitive ability, regardless of socio-economic background, with full scholarships available to ensure that no brilliant mind is left behind due to financial constraints. What Maxwell didn't mention was that the institute had been inspired by Lily, who had struggled in traditional educational settings. After 2 months as her guardian, he'd recognized that her needs couldn't be met by conventional schools, and that other exceptional children likely faced similar challenges. After the press conference, Maxwell returned to his office, the same corner suite he'd been escorted from 3 months earlier. The space had been redecorated during his absence, Richard's influence evident in the modern furniture and abstract art. "We'll need to redecorate," he told his new assistant, a capable young woman named Sophia, "and I'll need a separate workspace set up for my granddaughter. She'll be joining me 3 afternoons a week." Sophia nodded, making notes. "Will Ms. Grayson be joining the company as well?" Maxwell smiled, appreciating the question. Eliza had taken a leave of absence from her counseling position to help with Lily's transition and her own reconnection with her father. Not formally, but she'll be consulting on the institute. Her background in education and child psychology is invaluable. As Maxwell settled back into corporate life, he found himself operating differently than before. Meetings were scheduled only between 9 and 4. Weekends became sacrosanct family time. Most significantly, he delegated responsibilities he would once have insisted on handling personally. "You seem different," observed Jacob Miller, his longtime chief technology officer, and one of the few executives who had opposed Richard's coup. They were reviewing plans for the AI division's next generation of projects. "Different how?" Maxwell asked. Jacob considered. "More human, less driven by the next innovation, more focused on why it matters." Maxwell nodded, acknowledging the observation. "Nearly dying will do that to you, so will becoming a guardian to a 7-year-old genius." "How is Lily adjusting?" Jacob asked. The entire company had heard about the remarkable child who had saved the CEO's life and turned out to be his granddaughter. "She's extraordinary," Maxwell replied, unable to keep the pride from his voice. "Challenging in the way only a child with an IQ off the charts can be, but also," he paused, searching for the right word, "healing." Before Jacob could respond, Maxwell's phone rang, Lily's special ringtone. "Excuse me," he said, answering immediately. "Lily, is everything all right?" "Eliza took me to the Museum of Natural History," Lily reported. "Their dinosaur exhibit contains 14 factual errors. I've compiled a list for the curator." Maxwell suppressed a smile. "That's very thorough of you. Also, we're outside your building. Eliza says it's time for our lunch meeting." Maxwell checked his watch. 12:30 exactly. "I'll be right down." In the lobby, he found Eliza and Lily waiting. At Eliza's insistence, Lily had begun dressing more like a typical child, though her vocabulary and demeanor remained distinctly her own. "How was the museum?" Maxwell asked as they walked to a nearby restaurant. "Inadequate," Lily replied seriously. "But Eliza says I shouldn't tell people their exhibits are wrong because it's impolite." "It's not about politeness," Eliza clarified. It's about choosing the right approach. Your letter to the curator is perfect. Constructive feedback rather than public criticism. Maxwell marveled at his daughter's patience and wisdom. She'd taken to pseudo-parenting with surprising skill, complementing his own more analytical approach to raising Lily. Over lunch, the three discussed plans for the institute. Lily had strong opinions about curriculum design, while Eliza focused on emotional intelligence and social development. The children need both, Eliza insisted, when Lily prioritized academic rigor. Brilliant minds without emotional intelligence often struggle later in life. Like me? Maxwell asked with self-deprecating humor. Eliza smiled. You're learning. As they finished lunch, Maxwell's phone buzzed with a text from Detective Rivera. Vance requesting meeting. Claims critical information about Ming Chen. Advise? Maxwell stared at the message, his appetite vanishing. After 3 months in custody awaiting trial, Richard was suddenly offering information about Ming, about Lily's grandmother, and his long-ago relationship. What's wrong? Eliza asked, noting his expression. Maxwell hesitated, glancing at Lily, who was calculating the tip with precise percentages. Nothing important, he lied, pocketing his phone. Just work. But as they returned to the penthouse that evening, the message haunted him. What did Richard know about Ming that he didn't? And more importantly, what was he willing to do to find out? The visiting room at Rikers Island was a far cry from the executive boardrooms where Maxwell and Richard had once made decisions worth billions. Now, a scratched plexiglass barrier separated them, as Richard, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, offered a smile that didn't reach his eyes. You look well, Max, Richard observed, lifting the visitation phone. Corporate life agrees with you again, I see. What do you want, Richard? Maxwell kept his voice cold, regretting his decision to come. Your message mentioned Ming Chen. Richard leaned back, savoring his momentary power. Straight to business. Some things never change. I'm not here to reminisce about our friendship. That died when you tried to kill me. So dramatic, Richard replied. But yes, let's discuss Ming. Beautiful, brilliant Ming, who left so suddenly in '93. Did you ever wonder why? Maxwell's jaw tightened. You told me she returned to China for family reasons. I lied, Richard admitted easily. She wasn't going back to family. She was running from you. Why would she run from me? Richard's smile widened. Because she was terrified. Because when she told you she was pregnant, you threatened to ruin her career if she kept the baby. Maxwell recoiled. That's absurd. She never told me she was pregnant. I would have— What? Richard interrupted. Supported her? Married her? We both know you were already dating Catherine by then, the socially appropriate match for an ambitious entrepreneur. This is fiction, Maxwell insisted, though doubt had crept into his voice. Ming never told me about any pregnancy. She told me she did, Richard countered. The night before she left, she came to my apartment in tears. Said you'd given her an ultimatum, terminate the pregnancy or lose everything. Maxwell shook his head. Why would I do that? It makes no sense. Because Catherine's father was your biggest investor at the time. Because a scandal would have killed your funding. Because you were ruthlessly ambitious. Richard shrugged. At least, that's what Ming believed. If this is true, why are you telling me now? Maxwell demanded. Richard leaned forward, dropping his voice. Because I want a deal, Max. My cooperation with the SEC investigation in exchange for immunity from the attempted murder charge. The naked self-interest wasn't surprising, but the information about Ming had shaken Maxwell more than he wanted to admit. I don't control the prosecutor's office. But you influence it, Richard insisted. One word from the victim about how you're not certain it was attempted murder, just corporate espionage gone too far. Maxwell stood. I need to verify your story about Ming first. Richard's expression hardened. "Don't wait too long. My attorney is negotiating with the prosecution as we speak. If I don't get what I want from you, perhaps your precious granddaughter would be interested in hearing how her grandfather rejected her mother before she was even born." Maxwell slammed the phone down and walked out, his mind churning. Outside, Eliza was waiting in the car, having insisted on accompanying him despite his objections. "What did he want?" she asked as Maxwell slid into the passenger seat, his face ashen. "To manipulate me," Maxwell replied, staring straight ahead. "And possibly to destroy my relationship with Lily." On the drive back to Manhattan, Maxwell recounted Richard's claims about Ming, watching Eliza's expression shift from shock to skepticism. "You don't believe him, do you?" she asked finally. "I don't want to," Maxwell admitted, "but there are gaps in my memory of that time. I was working 18-hour days, juggling investors, development timelines." "Dad," Eliza interrupted firmly, "you have many flaws, but threatening a pregnant woman isn't one of them. This is Richard trying to drive a wedge between you and Lily." Maxwell nodded, grateful for her confidence but still troubled. "Either way, I need to know the truth, for Lily's sake. How? Ming is apparently dead, and the only other person who claims to know what happened is Richard." Maxwell stared out the window, watching the city landscape rush by. "Maybe not. Ming had a friend at the company, Janet Wong. They were close. If Ming confided in anyone about the pregnancy, it would have been her. After 30 years, you think she'll remember?" "Some things you don't forget," Maxwell replied grimly. Back at the penthouse, they found Lily engrossed in a complex coding project she'd been developing with Jacob from the AI division, a natural language processing system designed to identify emotional patterns in text. "Your meeting with Richard Vance lasted 27 minutes, she observed without looking up from her laptop. "That's 17 minutes longer than optimal exposure to a sociopath." Maxwell and Eliza exchanged startled glances. "How did you know where I was?" Maxwell asked. "Simple deduction," Lily replied, finally looking up. "Detective Rivera texted you yesterday about Richard wanting to meet. You seemed disturbed, but didn't share the information." Logical conclusion: you planned to see him but didn't want me to know. Her matter-of-fact analysis reminded Maxwell again of her extraordinary perception and the difficulty of shielding her from painful truths. "Lily," he began carefully, "Richard said some things about your grandmother, Ming, that I need to verify." Lily's expression remained neutral, but her fingers stilled on the keyboard. "What things?" Maxwell hesitated, looking to Eliza for guidance. She gave a slight nod. "He suggested that I knew about your mother before she was born, and that I rejected them both." Lily absorbed this, her analytical mind visibly processing. "That contradicts what my grandmother told me. She said my mother's father never knew about her." Relief flooded Maxwell. "Ming told you that?" "Not directly," Lily clarified. "I overheard her telling my mother once, when I was 4. My mother asked why he never contacted them, and my grandmother said he couldn't contact what he didn't know existed." The simple recollection, delivered with Lily's characteristic precision, eased some of Maxwell's dread. Still, he needed more conclusive evidence to counter Richard's poisonous narrative. "Thank you for telling me that," Maxwell said, "but I still need to find Janet Wong." "Who is Janet Wong?" Lily asked. "Someone who might know the whole truth," Maxwell replied, "about your grandmother, your mother, and me." But the modest brownstone in Queens seemed an unlikely residence for a woman who had once been at the forefront of technological innovation. Janet Wong, now 72, welcomed Maxwell with cautious politeness, her silver hair cut in a practical bob that framed a face still sharp with intelligence. 30 years is a long time to suddenly remember old colleagues, she observed, serving tea in delicate cups that reminded Maxwell of Ming's similar collection. "I wouldn't disturb you without good reason," Maxwell assured her, noting the photographs on her wall, many featuring a younger Janet with Ming at company functions, hiking trips, and casual gatherings. "You mean Lily?" Janet said bluntly. "Ming's granddaughter." Maxwell nearly dropped his teacup. "You know about Lily?" Janet's expression softened slightly. "Ming and I remained friends until her death 5 years ago. We spoke weekly, even after she returned to China. Then you know I'm Lily's grandfather. Of course, I recognized the resemblance immediately when I saw the news reports about the billionaire saved by child prodigy. Same eyes. Same analytical stare." Janet sipped her tea. "What I don't understand is why you're here now, asking about ancient history." Maxwell set his cup down. "Richard Vance claims Ming told him I rejected her and the pregnancy, that I threatened her career if she didn't terminate." Janet's laugh was sharp and unexpected. "That's absurd. Ming never told you she was pregnant." "Why not?" The question had haunted Maxwell for months. "We were close. We were. Lovers," Janet supplied when he faltered. "Yes, briefly. But Ming knew you were already seeing Catherine Sullivan by then. She saw the society page photos." Maxwell winced at the memory. Catherine's father had insisted they attend certain social events together as a condition of his investment. What had begun as business obligation had eventually evolved into a real relationship, but not until after Ming had left. "That doesn't explain why she didn't tell me about the baby." Janet studied him thoughtfully. "Ming was fiercely independent. When she discovered she was pregnant, she made a calculated decision. She believed you were on a trajectory that didn't include her or a child. Rather than risk rejection, or worse, obligation, she chose to leave. Without giving me the chance to make my own decision," Maxwell said, a note of anger creeping into his voice. "Yes," Janet agreed simply. "It wasn't fair to you. I told her so at the time, but she believed she was protecting both herself and her child from inevitable disappointment. And Richard, what was his role in all this?" Janet's expression hardened. "Richard pursued Ming relentlessly before and after your brief relationship. She rejected him consistently. When she discovered she was pregnant, he saw an opportunity." "What kind of opportunity?" "He offered to go with her to China, to marry her, to raise the child as his own." Janet shook her head at the memory. "When she refused, he became vindictive. I believe he's the one who spread rumors about her competence before she left." "But she confided in him about the pregnancy?" "No," Janet said firmly. "She confided in me. Richard found out because he was obsessively monitoring her medical appointments, her phone calls. He confronted her, offered his solution, and when rejected, threatened to tell you about the pregnancy himself." "Why didn't he?" Maxwell asked. "Because Ming promised to leave without drama, to disappear completely rather than create a scandal that might damage the company. Richard agreed because he hoped she would eventually turn to him for help." "Did she?" Janet shook her head. "Never. She built a life in Shanghai, raised Lin on her own, and later brought Lily into the world. She was remarkable." "She was," Maxwell agreed softly, memories of Ming's brilliance and quiet determination flooding back. "I wish I'd known about Lin, about the chance to be a father to her." "Ming regretted her decision in later years," Janet admitted, "after seeing your success, how you'd matured. But by then, too much time had passed. She didn't know how to bridge that gap." As their conversation continued, Janet shared photographs of Ming's life in Shanghai, including several of Lin as a child, a teenager, and finally as a young woman with her own daughter, Lily. Each image was a glimpse into the family Maxwell should have known, the years irretrievably lost. "I'd like to make copies of these," Maxwell said, his voice thick with emotion, "for Lily's sake." "Take them," Janet offered. "I have duplicates. Ming would want Lily to have them." Before leaving, Maxwell asked the question that had been forming throughout their conversation. Why did Richard lie about Ming telling me about the pregnancy? What does he gain? Janet considered this. Richard has always resented you, your success, your vision, the admiration you earned. But more than that, he resented that Ming chose you, however briefly, over him. So this is about revenge, after all these years? Revenge, Janet agreed, and perhaps something more immediate. If he can make you doubt yourself, make Lily doubt you, he might find leverage for his current legal troubles. On the drive back to Manhattan, Maxwell studied the photographs of his daughter. The child he'd never known existed until she was already gone. Lin Chen had his height, Ming's delicate features, and a serious expression that reminded him painfully of Lily. By the time he reached the penthouse, Maxwell had made his decision. Richard's manipulations stopped now. No more secrets, no more doubts. Lily deserved the complete truth about her family, the good, the bad, and everything in between. He found her and Eliza in the kitchen, baking cookies, an ordinary domestic scene that would have been unimaginable in his life 6 months earlier. "How did it go?" Eliza asked, reading his expression with concern. "I have something to show you both," Maxwell replied, placing Janet's photographs on the counter. "It's time Lily saw her mother." Christmas Eve 2023 transformed the Grayson penthouse. A 12-foot Fraser fir dominated the living room, its lights reflecting off floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the snow-covered city. Beneath it, presents were arranged with mathematical precision, Lily's doing naturally. The spatial arrangement optimizes both aesthetic appeal and unwrapping efficiency, she explained to Maxwell as they surveyed her work. "Of course it does," he replied, hiding a smile. At 8 now, her birthday had been celebrated in October with a visit to NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Lily remained as analytical as ever, though subtle changes had emerged over the past 6 months. She laughed more readily. She'd developed friendships with 3 other gifted children discovered during recruitment for the Grayson Institute. Most significantly, she'd begun calling Maxwell grandfather instead of Mr. Grayson, a transition that still brought a lump to his throat each time. The doorbell announced Eliza's arrival. She entered in a flurry of shopping bags and snow, her cheeks flushed with cold. "Final gifts," she announced, depositing the bags on the sofa. "Don't peek, Lily. I already calculated the contents based on shape, weight distribution, and your shopping patterns," Lily replied matter-of-factly, though her eyes sparkled with uncharacteristic mischief. "Oh, really?" Eliza challenged, hands on hips. "What's in the blue bag, then?" Lily's brow furrowed in concentration. "The advanced telescope I mentioned in September. You ordered it from Germany based on my specifications." Eliza's jaw dropped. "How could you possibly—" "I heard you on the phone with the German retailer," Lily admitted. "My auditory processing capabilities extend to approximately 70 feet in optimal conditions." Maxwell chuckled. "In other words, she eavesdropped." "Inadvertently," Lily clarified, though her slight smile suggested otherwise. As they prepared for their Christmas Eve dinner, catered this year instead of Maxwell's usual restaurant reservation to accommodate Lily's preference for home, Maxwell reflected on the extraordinary year behind them. Richard's trial had concluded in November with convictions on all charges except attempted murder, which had been plea bargained down. He was serving 12 years for fraud and corporate espionage. Grayson Enterprises had not only recovered, but thrived under Maxwell's renewed leadership. The AI division was pioneering breakthrough technologies in natural language processing, with applications ranging from medical diagnostics to educational software. The Grayson Institute would open its doors in January with 12 exceptional students, including Lily. Most importantly, the fractured relationships within the Grayson family had begun healing. Eliza had returned to her counseling practice, but spent weekends at the penthouse. Catherine, Maxwell's ex-wife, had even visited for Thanksgiving, her initial skepticism about Lily giving way to genuine affection for the remarkable child. "Your expression suggests deep contemplation," Lily observed, interrupting Maxwell's thoughts as she carefully arranged silverware. "Are you calculating end-of-year dividends again?" "No," Maxwell replied with a smile. "Just appreciating how much has changed since last Christmas." Lily nodded solemnly. "The statistical probability of our current family configuration, given the starting variables in May, was approximately 0.0027%. Is that so?" "Yes. Extremely improbable. Yet here we are." She paused, struggling with emotions still new to her. "I find I'm grateful for improbabilities." "So am I," Maxwell agreed softly. Dinner was a warm, intimate affair, with Eliza sharing amusing stories from her counseling practice and Lily explaining her latest research project, a computational model of cardiac electrical patterns she'd developed with cardiologists at New York Presbyterian, inspired by Maxwell's heart attack. Later, as tradition dictated opening one gift on Christmas Eve, Lily presented Maxwell and Eliza each with a small package. "I made these," she explained, a hint of nervousness in her voice. Inside each box lay an intricately crafted silver pendant. Maxwell's contained a miniature replica of his cardiac rhythm from the day Lily had saved him, laser-etched with microscopic precision. Eliza's featured the neural pathway pattern representing emotional bonding. "These are beautiful," Eliza whispered, visibly moved. "How did you make them?" "Jacob helped me use the fabrication lab at Grayson Enterprises," Lily explained. "I designed the molecular structure to optimize both strength and emotional significance." "Emotional significance?" Maxwell repeated, touched by the concept from his typically rational granddaughter. Lily nodded. "Lily, I've been studying the neurochemical basis of sentiment. These represent the scientific foundation of our family bond." It was, perhaps, the most profound expression of love an 8-year-old genius could offer. After Lily had gone to bed, Maxwell and Eliza sat by the fire, sharing a quiet moment before the excitement of Christmas morning. "She's changing," Eliza observed, "becoming more balanced between her analytical brilliance and her emotional capacity." "Like someone else I know," Maxwell replied, giving his daughter a meaningful look. Eliza smiled, acknowledging the parallel. "We've all changed this year." Maxwell nodded, fingering the silver pendant around his neck, the physical representation of the moment his life had been saved, both literally and figuratively. "Do you ever wonder," he asked softly, "what would have happened if she hadn't been in the park that day, if she hadn't recognized the cardiac tamponade?" "You mean if you had died?" Eliza's direct approach hadn't changed, despite their improved relationship. "Yes." "I try not to think about it," Eliza admitted, "but I'm grateful every day that she was there, not just because she saved your life, but because she brought you back to us in ways I never thought possible." Outside, snow continued to fall on Christmas Eve, blanketing the city in peaceful white, as the Grayson family, improbably miraculously whole, slept under one roof for the first time. "Absolutely not." Maxwell's voice echoed through his office at Grayson Enterprises, uncharacteristically harsh. "It's out of the question." Across the desk, 8-year-old Lily stood her ground with the same determination that had allowed her to survive homeless at 7. "Your objection is irrational," she countered. "The Shanghai Conference on Artificial Intelligence represents a significant opportunity to expand the Institute's international presence." "The conference isn't the issue," Maxwell clarified, struggling to remain patient. "You traveling to China without me is." "Eliza would accompany me," Lily pointed out. "And the conference organizers have specifically requested my presentation on neural network optimization." It was February 2024, and the Grayson Institute for Exceptional Young Minds had been operating successfully for 1 month. Lily, while officially a student, also served as a junior research fellow, developing AI applications for educational purposes. Her algorithm for personalizing learning pathways had attracted international attention, including an invitation to present at a prestigious conference in Shanghai. "You're 8 years old," Maxwell reminded her, "no matter how brilliant." "It is, chronological age is an arbitrary metric for capability assessment," Lily replied, her vocabulary expanding with her frustration. "You're allowing emotional factors to override logical decision-making." "Perhaps I am," Maxwell admitted. "But as your guardian and grandfather, that's my prerogative." Their standoff was interrupted by Eliza's arrival. She assessed the situation with the skilled eye of a counselor. "What's happening here?" "Grandfather is being unreasonable about the Shanghai conference," Lily reported immediately. "Lily wants to travel to China without me," Maxwell countered. Eliza sighed, recognizing the first major conflict in their otherwise harmonious family dynamic. "Why can't you go, Dad?" "The SEC hearings on Richard's case are that week. I'm required to testify." "Can't you reschedule?" "No," Maxwell said firmly. "And more importantly, I'm not comfortable with Lily returning to China under these circumstances." "What circumstances?" Lily asked, her perceptive gaze sharpening. Maxwell and Eliza exchanged glances, communicating silently in the way they'd learned over the past year. "Your mother and grandmother left China for reasons that might still be relevant," Maxwell said carefully. Lily's eyes narrowed. "You're withholding information." "Not withholding," Maxwell corrected. "Protecting." "From what?" Another silent exchange between the adults. Finally, Eliza nodded slightly, and Maxwell sighed. "Janet Wong contacted me last week," he explained. "She received an inquiry from someone in Shanghai asking about Ming Chen's family, specifically about her American granddaughter." Lily processed this. "The timing correlates with the conference announcement. Someone saw my name and made the connection." "Exactly," Maxwell confirmed. "And until we know who's asking and why, I'm not comfortable with you traveling there. But the statistical probability of any genuine threat is minimal," Lily argued. "The inquiry could be from former colleagues, friends, distant relatives, or it could be from someone with less benign intentions," Maxwell countered. "I'm not willing to take that risk." For the first time in their relationship, Lily's expression showed real anger. A flash of emotion that reminded Maxwell painfully of Ming during their rare disagreements. "You're being overprotective and irrational," she declared, turning on her heel and walking out. In the silence that followed, Eliza gave her father a sympathetic look. "Welcome to parenting a gifted child." "She's never walked away from me before," Maxwell said, troubled by the confrontation. "She's evolving emotionally," Eliza explained, "learning to express feelings beyond her analytical framework. It's healthy, actually." "Doesn't feel healthy," Maxwell grumbled. "That's parenting," Eliza replied with a small smile. "But she has a point about the conference. It's a remarkable opportunity." "At too high a risk," Maxwell insisted. "You don't understand what's at stake." "Then help me understand," Eliza urged. "What aren't you telling us about Ming's departure from China?" Maxwell hesitated, then retrieved a folder from his locked drawer. "Janet shared these with me last month. I was waiting for the right time to discuss them with you both." Inside were copies of letters Ming had written to Janet over the years, dozens of them, documenting her life in Shanghai and, more significantly, her reasons for leaving China and later America. "Ming wasn't just my research assistant," Maxwell explained as Eliza scanned the letters. "She was developing her own AI algorithms, breakthrough work that drew attention from Chinese government officials. When she refused to share her research for military applications, she was threatened. That's why she came to America in the first place." "And when she returned to China pregnant?" Eliza asked. She disappeared into Shanghai's academic community, changed her name from Chen to Lin, and abandoned her AI research entirely. It was the only way to protect herself and her child. Eliza looked up from the letters, understanding dawning. You think someone has connected Lily to Ming's original work? It's possible, Maxwell acknowledged. Ming was brilliant, decades ahead of her time. Her algorithms would still be valuable today, especially given where AI development has gone. Have you told Lily any of this? Not yet, Maxwell admitted. I wanted to shield her from these complications. She deserves to know her grandmother's full story, Eliza said gently. Especially now that it's potentially affecting her opportunities. Maxwell nodded, acknowledging the wisdom in his daughter's counsel. You're right. We'll tell her together tonight. Later that evening, they found Lily in the penthouse library, surrounded by books on Chinese history and culture, preparing for a trip she still believed she would take. We need to talk, Maxwell said, sitting beside her with the folder of letters, about your grandmother, her work, and why I'm concerned about you traveling to Shanghai. As they shared Ming's story, her groundbreaking AI research, the government pressure, her difficult choices, Lily listened with complete focus, occasionally asking piercing questions that revealed her deep intelligence. So, my grandmother was essentially a pioneer in neural network design, she concluded, processing the information. And potentially someone believes I have access to her original algorithms. That's our concern, Maxwell confirmed. Your invitation to this conference came suspiciously soon after your work at the Institute gained publicity. Lily was quiet for a long moment, her analytical mind visibly working. I understand your caution now, she said finally, but running away isn't the correct strategy. What do you mean? My grandmother hid for decades, changing her name, abandoning her work. That's not the optimal solution. Lily's expression was resolute. We should face this directly. Identify who's making inquiries and determine their actual intentions. Maxwell and Eliza exchanged surprised glances. That's not what I expected you to say, Maxwell admitted. It's the logical approach, Lily insisted, and I still want to attend the conference. But now I understand we need additional security parameters. Her mature response, balancing determination with newfound caution, reminded Maxwell yet again that his granddaughter was unlike any child he'd ever encountered. We'll consider it, he promised, with appropriate safeguards. As Lily returned to her books, apparently satisfied with this compromise, Maxwell reflected on how dramatically his life had changed in 9 months. He had gone from a solitary corporate titan to a grandfather navigating the complexities of raising a prodigy, and discovering that despite his decades of business negotiations, 8-year-old Lily might be his most formidable adversary yet. Are you absolutely certain about this? Maxwell asked for the 3rd time, as they stood in the private terminal at JFK, preparing to board the Grayson corporate jet. The security protocols are comprehensive, Eliza assured him, checking her documents. 2 plainclothes security specialists, diplomatic contacts through your Chinese partners, and a fully vetted conference staff. Plus we're staying at the Ritz-Carlton, not some random hotel, added Jacob Miller, who had volunteered to accompany them to Shanghai as an additional layer of protection. As Grayson Enterprises' CTO and one of Maxwell's most trusted executives, Jacob brought both technical expertise and a reassuring physical presence. Lily observed their conversation with poorly concealed impatience. The statistical probability of any security incident is less than 0.7%. We've discussed this extensively. Indeed, they had. The past month had been consumed with preparations for the Shanghai trip. Maxwell had leveraged every business and political contact to ensure Lily's safety, while still allowing her the opportunity to present her groundbreaking work on educational AI applications. I know, Maxwell conceded. I just wish the SEC testimony could be rescheduled. It can't, Lily reminded him practically. And your presence is crucial to ensuring Richard remains incarcerated. The mention of Richard Vance still evoked a visceral response in Maxwell. Despite his conviction, Richard continued to manipulate from prison, recently attempting to share exclusive information about Grayson Enterprises with technology journalists, information that proved to be fabricated, but nonetheless required Maxwell's constant vigilance to counter. "Call me immediately if anything seems unusual," Maxwell instructed, kneeling to Lily's level despite his arthritic knee, a remnant of his cardiac episode that still troubled him occasionally. "Anything at all." "I will calculate anomalies with precision," Lily promised solemnly before adding, "I'll miss you, grandfather." The simple statement, delivered without her usual analytical qualifiers, squeezed Maxwell's heart. "I'll miss you too. Be careful." "Always," she replied, embracing him briefly before boarding the plane with Eliza and Jacob. As the jet taxied away, Maxwell felt a profound unease he couldn't quite name. Perhaps it was simply the first significant separation from Lily since she'd entered his life, or perhaps something more instinctive, a protective grandfather's natural concern. Either way, as he returned to his waiting car, Maxwell made a mental note to check the SEC testimony schedule once more. Perhaps there was still a way to join them in Shanghai after fulfilling his legal obligations. 5 days later, Maxwell sat in a stark federal building, delivering his testimony about Richard's corporate espionage and financial fraud. The proceedings dragged interminably, with Richard's attorneys objecting to virtually every statement. During a recess, Maxwell checked his phone for updates from Shanghai. Eliza had been sending daily reports and photographs, Lily presenting her research to an impressed audience of AI specialists, Lily touring the Shanghai Science Museum, Lily practicing her elementary Mandarin with hotel staff. The conference was proceeding perfectly, with Lily's presentation drawing significant attention from international researchers. No suspicious approaches, no security concerns. Maxwell's anxiety had begun to ease. Then came the text that changed everything. From an unknown number, "We have information about Ming Chen's original research that your granddaughter should see. Meeting arranged for tomorrow at Shanghai University Archives. Tell no one if you want the truth about her grandmother's work." Maxwell stared at the message, his heart racing. This was exactly the scenario they had feared. Someone using Ming's legacy to make contact with Lily. He immediately forwarded the message to Eliza, Jacob, and their security team with explicit instructions. Absolutely no meetings outside the approved schedule. Security level maximum. Eliza's response came within minutes. "Understood. No unauthorized meetings. Security confirmed." Somewhat reassured, Maxwell returned to the hearing room to complete his testimony. Hours later, as he was finally leaving the federal building, his phone rang. Jacob's number. "What's happening?" Maxwell answered without preamble. Jacob's voice was tight with concern. "We have a situation." Lily received a package at the hotel, documents allegedly from Ming's university colleague. Before we could fully examine them, she's gone, Max. "What do you mean, gone?" Maxwell demanded, cold fear gripping him. "She slipped away while Eliza was in the shower. Left a note saying she's meeting someone who has her grandmother's original research papers. The security team is searching, but—" "I'm coming," Maxwell interrupted, already signaling his driver. "Have the plane ready, and contact the local police immediately." "Already done," Jacob assured him. "And I've notified our corporate contacts in the Chinese government. Everyone's looking for her." "What about security cameras? Her phone?" "She left her phone in her room, deliberately it seems. Hotel cameras show her leaving, with a middle-aged Chinese woman approximately 40 minutes ago." Maxwell closed his eyes, fighting panic. Did the woman appear to be coercing her? No, Jacob admitted. Lily went willingly. She seemed excited. That was somehow worse. Lily's brilliant mind sometimes outpaced her 8-year-old judgment, especially when intellectual curiosity was involved. "I'll be there as soon as possible," Maxwell promised, ending the call as his car sped toward the airport. During the 14-hour flight to Shanghai, Maxwell alternated between frantic coordination with the search teams and agonizing self-recrimination. He should never have allowed the trip without him, should have trusted his instincts, should have told Lily more about the potential dangers surrounding Ming's past. Somewhere over the Pacific, Eliza called with an update that offered the first glimmer of hope. Hotel security found footage of the woman who met Lily, she reported. They've identified her as Dr. Mei Zhang, former professor of computer science at Shanghai University. Does she have any connection to Ming? They were colleagues in the early 1990s, Eliza confirmed, and we've located Dr. Zhang's current address. Police are en route now. Maxwell gripped the phone tighter. Any indication of her motives? None yet, Eliza admitted, her voice betraying the strain of the past hours. But the hotel staff remember her speaking kindly to Lily, showing her photographs. It didn't appear threatening. Appearances can be deceiving, Maxwell replied grimly, remembering how thoroughly Richard had deceived him for years. Keep me updated. We land in 4 hours. The wait was excruciating. Maxwell alternated between reviewing security updates and studying the limited information they had on Dr. Mei Zhang, a respected academic whose specialty had been, like Ming's, early neural network design. Just as the plane began its descent into Shanghai, Maxwell's phone chimed with a message from Eliza. A single photo showing Lily, unharmed and smiling, sitting in what appeared to be a police station beside the same middle-aged woman from the hotel footage. The accompanying text read, "She's safe, doctor. Zhang brought her to police herself when she saw the alerts. Wait until you hear what she found." Relief flooded Maxwell so intensely he nearly wept. Lily was safe. Whatever else had happened, whatever Ming's colleague had wanted, his granddaughter was unharmed. As the plane touched down in Shanghai, Maxwell prepared to face whatever revelations awaited, and to never let Lily out of his sight again. The Shanghai police station hummed with activity as Maxwell rushed through the doors, his heart still pounding despite Eliza's assurances that Lily was safe. He spotted them immediately, Eliza, Jacob, and Lily, seated in a glass-walled conference room alongside a dignified Chinese woman in her 60s. Lily jumped up when she saw him, her usual composure abandoned as she ran to embrace him. "Grandfather, you didn't need to come all this way." Maxwell held her tightly, relief making his voice rough. "When my granddaughter disappears in a foreign country, yes, I absolutely need to come." Over Lily's head, he met Eliza's eyes, silently acknowledging her capable handling of the crisis. She looked exhausted but relieved. "Mr. Grayson," the police captain greeted him formally, "we apologize for the concern. There was a misunderstanding, but as you can see, your granddaughter is unharmed." "A misunderstanding?" Maxwell repeated, his tone making clear he found the description inadequate. The Chinese woman rose and approached, her bearing dignified despite the circumstances. "The fault is entirely mine, Mr. Grayson. I am Dr. Mei Zhang. I was a colleague of Ming's at Shanghai University before she left for America." Maxwell maintained a protective arm around Lily. "You lured my granddaughter away from her security team." "I did not intend to cause alarm," Dr. Zhang replied, her English precise. "I had been trying to reach you through proper channels for weeks, but my messages were intercepted." "Intercepted by whom?" "That remains unclear," she admitted. "But when I saw Lily's presentation at the conference, recognized Ming's intellectual signature in her work, I knew I had to speak with her directly." "About what?" exactly?" Maxwell demanded. Dr. Zhang gestured to a worn leather portfolio on the conference table. Ming's original research, her true legacy, the work she was forced to abandon when she fled China. Lily tugged at Maxwell's sleeve. "Grandfather, you must see these papers. Grandmother's algorithms were decades ahead of their time." Maxwell's anger softened at Lily's enthusiasm, though caution remained. "We should discuss this privately." An hour later, after formal apologies and assurances had been exchanged with the Shanghai authorities, the Grayson party relocated to a secure conference room at their hotel. Dr. Zhang accompanied them, the precious portfolio never leaving her possession. "I protected these papers for 30 years, she explained, carefully opening the leather case. "Ming entrusted them to me the night before she left China, made me promise to keep them hidden until it was safe to reveal them." "And you decided that time was now?" Maxwell asked, still skeptical of her motives. "I am dying, Mr. Grayson," Dr. Zhang replied simply. "Cancer. I have perhaps 6 months remaining. When I saw Lily's name associated with the AI conference, I recognized my last opportunity to fulfill my promise to Ming." The blunt statement silenced Maxwell's suspicions. Dr. Zhang continued, spreading out yellowed papers covered in Ming's distinctive handwriting. "These represent Ming's true breakthrough, not merely in neural network design, but in what you now call artificial consciousness. She theorized a framework for machine learning that mimics human moral and ethical development." Lily was already absorbed in the documents, her brilliant mind processing concepts that would challenge most adult experts. "These equations establish ethical boundary conditions," she murmured, tracing a formula with her finger. "Grandmother was creating AI with inherent moral constraints." "Exactly," Dr. Zhang confirmed. While others focused on making machines smarter, Ming focused on making them wiser. The Chinese military wanted her work for weapons development. When she refused, she fled to America, Maxwell finished, pieces falling into place. And when she discovered she was pregnant, she feared the authorities would use her child as leverage, Dr. Zhang explained. So she disappeared completely. Maxwell stared at the documents, a complex mix of emotions washing over him. Pride in Ming's brilliant, principled work, regret for the years lost with her and their daughter, and profound gratitude that despite everything, Lily had found her way to him. "Why reveal these papers now?" Eliza asked. "If they were dangerous enough to force Ming into hiding." "Because the world has changed," Dr. Zhang replied. "What was once considered dangerous is now essential. AI development has reached a critical juncture where Ming's ethical framework could prevent catastrophic outcomes. And you believe Lily should continue this work?" Maxwell asked, protective instincts flaring. Dr. Zhang smiled gently. "I believe Ming would want her granddaughter to decide for herself. The papers are her birthright, regardless of what she chooses to do with them." The discussion continued into the night, with Lily asking increasingly sophisticated questions about her grandmother's work. Maxwell observed with a mixture of pride and concern as his 8-year-old granddaughter engaged in theoretical discussions that would challenge MIT professors. When Lily finally fell asleep on the hotel room sofa, exhausted from the day's excitement and emotional revelations, Maxwell carried her to bed before rejoining the adults. "What happens now?" he asked Dr. Zhang quietly. "That depends on you," she replied. "These papers represent a significant intellectual contribution that should be shared with the scientific community, but they also carry personal meaning for your family." Maxwell nodded, decision forming. "We'll establish a foundation in Ming's name to continue her ethical AI research. The papers will be digitized, protected, and made available to qualified researchers." "A wise choice," Dr. Zhang approved. "Ming would be pleased." After Dr. Zhang departed with promises to assist with the foundation's establishment. Maxwell found himself alone with Eliza. "I'm sorry for the scare," she said softly. "I should have watched her more carefully." "It's not your fault," Maxwell assured her. "Lily is uniquely determined when her curiosity is engaged. Like someone else I know," Eliza observed with a small smile. Maxwell acknowledged the comparison with a rueful nod. "She comes by it honestly, from both sides of her family tree." Nay, as the Shanghai skyline glittered outside their hotel window, Maxwell contemplated the extraordinary chain of events that had brought them to this moment. His heart attack in Central Park, Lily's improbable presence and intervention, the discovery of their biological connection, and now the recovery of Ming's intellectual legacy. "Life rarely follows a predictable path," he mused. "No," Eliza agreed, glancing toward the room where Lily slept. "But sometimes the detours lead us exactly where we need to go." On a bright September afternoon in 2024, 16 months after Maxwell's heart attack in Central Park, the Grayson family gathered on the expansive lawn of their newly acquired property in Connecticut. The former estate, renovated over the summer, now housed both their weekend home and the expanded campus of the Grayson Institute for Exceptional Young Minds. "The statistical probability of our current circumstances, calculated from our starting variables, remains remarkably low," Lily observed, adjusting the telescope she'd positioned for the evening's meteor shower. Now 9 years old, she had grown an inch taller and immeasurably in emotional intelligence, though her analytical perspective remained her defining characteristic. "Some things defy statistical analysis," Maxwell replied, helping her align the instrument. At 63, he moved more carefully than before his heart attack, but regular exercise and Lily's vigilant health monitoring had strengthened him considerably. "Like family," Eliza added, joining them with a tray of lemonade. At 33, she had recently accepted a formal position as Psychological Development Director at the Institute, balancing her counseling expertise with the unique needs of gifted children. The Grayson Institute had flourished beyond all expectations. What began with 12 students now served 40 exceptional young minds, each brilliant in their own way, though none quite matched Lily's extraordinary capabilities. The Ming Chen Foundation for Ethical AI Research, established after their Shanghai adventure, had become a respected voice in the global conversation about artificial intelligence development. As for Grayson Enterprises, Maxwell had finally achieved the balance that had eluded him for decades. He served as executive chairman, focusing on strategic vision, while empowering his executive team to manage daily operations. His schedule now prioritized family commitments, with Wednesdays and weekends dedicated entirely to Lily and Eliza. "The first guests are arriving," Lily noted, gesturing toward the driveway where cars had begun appearing. Today marked both the official opening of the Institute's expanded campus and the public launch of Ming's ethical AI framework, now developed into a comprehensive system with Lily's contributions. Academic leaders, technology executives, and government officials would soon fill the grounds, eager to witness what the media had dubbed the Grayson Chen breakthrough. "Are you ready?" Maxwell asked Lily, noting a rare flicker of nervousness in her expression. "I've rehearsed my presentation 14 times, she replied. "The content is sound." That's not what I meant," Maxwell said gently. Lily nodded, understanding his real question. "I'm ready to share grandmother's work with the world. It's time." The decision hadn't been easy. Ming's research, recovered in Shanghai, could have remained a private family legacy. Instead, they had chosen to develop it into a practical framework for ethical AI development, one that could shape the industry's future. As guests began to mingle on the lawn, Lily spotted a familiar face. Janet Wong, Ming's friend, now in her 70s but still sharp-eyed and elegant. "Miss Wong!" Lily called, approaching the older woman with uncharacteristic enthusiasm. Over the past year, Janet had become a surrogate grandmother figure, sharing stories of Ming that helped Lily understand her heritage. "There's my brilliant girl," Janet greeted her warmly. "Ready for your big moment?" Today, statistically speaking, public presentations by 9-year-olds have a 27% higher failure rate than those by adults, Lily replied seriously, before adding with newfound humor, "But I'm not a typical 9-year-old." "You certainly are not," Janet agreed, smiling at Maxwell and Eliza as they joined them. "Ming would be so proud of all of you, of what you've built together." The ceremony began an hour later, with Maxwell welcoming the assembled guests and explaining the Institute's mission: to nurture exceptional minds while developing the whole child. He spoke of his own transformation from single-minded CEO to guardian and grandfather, crediting Lily with teaching him what truly mattered. Then Lily took the stage, poised and confident beyond her years. She explained her grandmother's original vision: artificial intelligence governed by ethical principles as fundamental as mathematical laws. She demonstrated how these concepts had been developed into practical applications, showing particular promise in medical diagnostics, environmental modeling, and, perhaps most importantly, educational systems tailored to each child's unique needs. "My grandmother believed that technology should serve humanity's highest potential," Lily concluded, her clear voice carrying across the hushed audience. "Not by making us dependent or diminished, but by helping us become our best selves. That is the legacy I hope to continue." The applause was thunderous, with technology leaders immediately engaging in excited discussions about implementation possibilities. As Lily rejoined her family, Maxwell embraced her with unabashed pride. "You were magnificent," he told her. "Absolutely magnificent." Later that evening, after the guests had departed and the excitement had quieted, Maxwell found Lily on the back porch, gazing at the stars through her telescope. "Meteor shower starting?" he asked, settling into a chair beside her. "Not for another 42 minutes, she replied. "I'm just thinking." "About what?" Lily adjusted the telescope slightly before answering. "About improbabilities, about how one small change in variables can completely transform outcomes." "Like you being in Central Park that day?" Maxwell suggested. She nodded. "If I hadn't run away from the Andersons, if I hadn't been in that exact location, if I hadn't read that particular medical textbook, if I hadn't lost my company and had a heart attack," Maxwell added. "Precisely. The statistical improbability is fascinating." Maxwell smiled at her characteristic analytical approach to what others might call fate or destiny. "Some might say it wasn't chance at all." "You mean like divine intervention?" Lily asked skeptically. "The evidence for that is statistically insignificant. I meant more like belonging together, belonging. Like certain configurations of molecules are more stable than others, perhaps certain configurations of people are too." Lily considered this scientific framing of an emotional concept an intriguing hypothesis. It would be difficult to test empirically. "Some things we know without empirical testing," Maxwell replied. "Like how much I love you and Eliza and the family we've become." Lily was quiet for a moment, processing this in her unique way. "I've been studying emotional bonds," she finally said. "The neurochemistry is complex but fascinating. Did you know that family connections create distinct neural pathways?" "I didn't," Maxwell said, recognizing this as her way of expressing affection. "It's true. Our brains are literally rewired by loving someone." She glanced at him, then back at the stars. "My neural pathways have changed significantly since meeting you and Eliza." "Mine too," Maxwell said softly, understanding the profound sentiment behind her scientific explanation. They sat in comfortable silence as the first meteors began streaking across the night sky, brilliant, fleeting moments of light against the darkness. Like chance encounters that change lives forever. Like a small girl with extraordinary knowledge appearing exactly when needed, like family found against impossible odds. As Lily meticulously recorded each meteor's trajectory, Maxwell watched his remarkable granddaughter, living proof that sometimes life's most devastating moments can lead to its greatest blessings. 6 months earlier, Richard Vance had been transferred to a higher security facility after attempting to contact Lily through an intermediary. The threat he once posed had diminished to a shadow, unable to touch the family that had formed in the wake of his betrayal. "Did you see that one?" Lily asked excitedly, as a particularly bright meteor traced a path across the constellation Cassiopeia. "I did," Maxwell confirmed, squeezing her shoulder gently. "The probability of seeing a fireball of that magnitude is less than 2% during a typical shower," she informed him enthusiastically. "We seem to specialize in improbable events," Maxwell replied with a smile. Lily nodded, returning to her telescope with renewed focus. "That's what makes us statistically significant." Maxwell laughed softly at her uniquely Lily perspective. "Yes," he agreed, watching as Eliza joined them on the porch. "That's exactly what makes us special. Together, the unlikely family, the billionaire, his once estranged daughter, and the child prodigy who had saved and transformed them all, watched the cosmic light show, their shared future as bright and promising as the stars above."